We're live.
Last day, best day.
I know. What's up, everyone? Lauren and Tommy here, back in our Airbnb at Round Rock to recap the fourth and final day at the Rogue Invitational. And I mean, we're here early.
I know. I'm looking at the time. 7:30. Our good old friend Kelly is awake on the couch.
So if you hear a rumbling, it's the couch monster at our Airbnb. It's been sawing logs each of the last 2 nights. But yeah, so wrapped up a little bit early. Just individual competition. No legends. No. It did record breakers. I thought a little bit in the mezzanine, but everything was an abbreviated schedule, and as a result, things just went, and things just went quicker because it was rainy, it was cold. That was honestly the biggest difference was just the chill, the wind. It was pretty cold today, for sure.
I felt bad for us, but I felt worse for the athletes who are in shorts, sports bras, or no shirt at all for the men, as the women took the floor for the first event. And as soon as they walked out, it started pouring. And if you go through some of the pictures, the thing that is comical is those kettlebells that they use were like planters, essentially. So they were just collecting water. The women went to go bring them up for the first time and just dumped on them.
Yeah, some variable conditions. Obviously, they had to make some adjustments to the test today. But before we dive into it, just a quick reminder: all of our coverage this weekend is brought to you guys by our friends at Box Basics. You can see the graphic on the screen. Use the code RickShakers for 20% off. I mean, shoes. You want Tier, you want Strike Movement, you want Nike, you want Reebok. You name it. Even some brands you may not be familiar with. Born Primitive has their Savage 1 out. Victus has their Core 2 training shoe that I've been wearing, as well as lifters and all sorts of good gear there. 20% off everything in store. I believe that even counts for the stuff that's on sale. So
Shakers.
We'll leave it up. Use the code. Check it out. Get some early Christmas shopping done. Overall, they changed. Let's see. They took
the pegboards out.
The pegboards out. They adjusted the lunge in the first
one.
And then they moved the clean event under the mezzanine to be in an area that was dry, because that was kind of the contingency plan for where they could shoot stuff and do it. And I think overall, I mean, obviously you can say that the adjustments might have changed things on the leaderboard, but I still think that I mean, the athletes took it on the chin and went out there and threw down as a whole. Just kind of overarching theme. They just kind of rolled with the punches and continue to do amazing things, and even had a little fun with it. In that first one, we saw some athletes sliding. Obviously, Roman doing it, and then Chandler,
what a friggin' stud!
Oh man,
sliding down that hill.
I was talking about
model pose.
We were talking about, like, they posted that story that Rogue Fitness and Chandler did, but someone has to re-edit that with the Gold Link song "Crew" over the top of it, because that song is so smooth and sick and just would be perfect over that. But yeah, definitely go check that out, because like I said, Chandler's just too cool for school. But
he really is. Smile on his face, went down with style, and it was just like one after another. When Roman did it, almost all of the men did it, and it was fun. It added a different element to the workout for sure.
Yeah, so let's kind of cover the men first, because I think the big show. I mean, both ended up being really close.
Yeah,
but I think the big show coming in for everyone was the race between Tia and Laura. And I'll be honest, kind of big. We'll talk about it more in our big recap once Sean's back. Is I think a lot of the races that we're looking forward to seeing in 2024 were amplified a little bit by what took place here. So obviously, like, Tia and Laura, Roman, Adler, Pat throwing his hat in the ring, obviously doing great. Brent,
Ricky being back.
Yeah, Ricky being back. And then, obviously you mix in a few of the athletes that chose to sat out the season, and it could, potentially be, again, I feel like we say this year after year, but even an even better version of what's been an awesome women's field. And the opening event, Roman comes out and wins it, and that ended up being important. And let me go.
Here's the leaderboard.
So that ended up being
Do you want me to stack it based on event 7?
Yeah. So actually, Roman did not win it. He just won.
He won his heat. Yeah, Dallin Pepper,
Dallin
kept
Pepper
it from the first heat.
But that was huge because he already had an event win in his pocket, but that additional second place would help him out in case of a tiebreaker, because things were close. Obviously the tiebreaker scoring system goes to best finish. If both have a matching best finish, it keeps going on down the line. And Brent didn't have an event win then. So if Brent was able to snag one along the way, Roman had another backup performance just behind him. But yeah, so that kind of went pretty as expected, seeing Roman do well in that. Hopper finishing strong, obviously down a good performance on the Echo bike as well. And he was really, like, even talking to him at the end of the day, like, absent of overall performance, just happy to like have some consistency. We talked to Corinne too, his wife, who was hanging out there, and he just didn't feel like he ever really like got going in the first couple of days, and then he finally was able to do that with a win. And he had the best day 3 of anybody.
Oh yeah, biggest bounce back, and just looked better out there too.
First, fourth, and third at the lowest point, the highest amount of points gained of any athlete in the men's field on Sunday. Moves him back up into the top 10, earns a little bit of extra cash. But we go over to like the second one, which was, the ended up being handstand walk and box jump overs, and continuing this trend of every event having a new event winner. There were no repeat winners until the finale, which I thought was very unique.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that. Yeah, good note.
No repeat winners. Victor Hoffer comes out and showcases some of the skill that has people excited about him. Gymnastics is great. Handstand walk was no problem for him. Box jump's pretty straightforward. It was just more kind of like how much you keep the throttle down, moving through the tall box jumps and immediately right into the handstand walk with no hesitation. And for national level gymnasts, that's right up his alley. But the key is always going to be how well does he work on those other areas that don't suit him well, especially with him kind of looking after a back that he's worked really hard to get healthy.
Yeah, and even if people noticed that yesterday he didn't do the deadlift, he didn't even attempt it, because after speaking with him and some of his coaches, it just wasn't worth it. Wasn't the priority right now. He wants to build the base first. And I mean, I think, how old is he now? 19? Still,
he's pretty young.
Still very young. Still plenty of time for growth. Seeing him have these home run finishes in those gymnastics components, I think now with the HWPO crew that he's working with, it's going to be not this coming year, not next year, maybe not even the next year, but later in the next 3 or 4 years, that's when we're going to see the payouts from working on strength. So I'm excited to see what his journey is like the next couple of years.
I'm trying to find him on the leaderboard
from semifinals.
Yeah. Yep. There we go. So he's 20, maybe going on 21.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, still very young. But I think with like a lot of the mixed modalities in semifinals and seeing some more of the gymnastics skill, it'll be a little bit easier for him to kind of move up relative to Rogue, which seems a little bit heavier, some of these odd object stuff. And there was a lot of pulling from the floor, hip hinging, posterior chain work stuff that, he's obviously trying to look after.
Yeah. And I mean, this is the first time that he's competed against these men. I mean, there were semifinals, but that's still like you compete in your region, where a lot of these competitors he's never gone toe to toe with.
Yeah. He's going to be super active in the off season, hitting a bunch of the off season circuit, but this is by far like you want a good measuring stick against the best. And, whether or not, you feel you have what it takes to be not just a games athlete, but someone that can hang with some of those. I mean, he did have a trio of top 5 finishes across the weekend, and that's against some of the best in the world. So it's certainly something to hang your hat on. And then we get to the finale. So coming into the finale, Pat Velder had a 65-point lead over Jeff Adler. Seemed like he was maybe gonna be safe, but he had not necessarily had the best day, a 10th and a 9th coming into the event. Um, sort by rank.
Oh, so, yep.
Yeah. And so you're kind of like, okay, things will be all right. I bumped into his dad outside, and whenever we're just kind of lining up, and I'm like,
yeah.
"How you doing? Pat's looking pretty good." And he looked at me. He goes, he almost like the grizzled vet. It's like, it ain't over till it's over. I've
Yeah.
been here before, and we all know.
And his parents said that at the games to us
yeah.
too, and we saw them. It's just like they've been through the ringer with Pat, knowing that as soon as you say that he's safe and he's going to do it, something catastrophic happens. And we almost saw that in the last event today.
He was a handful of reps at clean and jerk reps at 225. Irony aside, away from winning Rogue last year. And there was incentive for a lot of guys behind him to keep pushing too, right? Because the separation between Adler, Roman, and Brent was fairly close, and Brent was 10 points ahead of Roman. Adler, I think, was around 20-ish points ahead of Brent. So they were all kind of fighting for these final couple of podium spots. So if Vellner decides to let off at all, and Adler has incentive to push, and this is power output, heavy barbell cycling. That's something that Jeffrey Adler's great at.
Yeah.
You think the way he announced himself to the world, really, I think after qualifying in 2019, was open workout 20.4, which at the end of all the pistols, box jumps, all that leg work, had I believe it was clean and jerks or hang clean and jerks up to 315. And he was power cleaning and push jerking, and just that kind of strength and cycling was like, okay, this final barbell, even under fatigue, isn't going to be an issue. So if you start failing reps, Jeff could put some pressure, and that's what happened.
Yeah,
to a T. Pat had one missed rep. He failed the jerk, collected himself, had to make sure he hit it, and it ended up being closer than anyone thought. Everyone's like, oh, he's all right, but really, he ended up 10?
He was 8th, I think. Nope. Oh wait, sorry.
Yeah.
10th.
Yeah. Because he was basically. Go down. I was trying to look at the difference between that and 14th.
Oops.
Yeah, 9 seconds.
Well, yeah.
9 seconds was the difference between what would have cost him the win there. And if you go back, when he failed the rep, it cost him around 15 to 16 seconds. So if he went back a little bit too soon and failed again, he would have lost.
Yeah.
He would have lost. It would have been deja vu and all over again. And, credit to Pat that this time around, there's a different ending, and he did so in a big way, because we heard Adrian Conway talk about it. Winning is a skill. It is something that, once you do, you have a little bit of understanding on how to win. And it's hard to quantify, right? In, I guess, mainstream sports, there are teams that know how to win, and that throughout the year, or they have a pedigree of being able to win in close games. And that plays a factor in the mental game when you get under stress and have things like a failed rep pop into your head. Like, how do you respond to that? And it may not necessarily be something that's conscious in that moment, but putting yourself through all those different scenarios in training and in competitions past, where you've been able to get into that and then come out the other side on top, is valuable. And very few athletes in the sport right now have that at the level that Pat does. So, it's nice to see him win again. I think people tend to assume because he has a bonk event, or he has that event where he has to pull himself out of the dredges, that
which was the first event again,
that he may not be like a contender to win. Like, he may not be someone's pick, but this is just a reminder for him, for everyone, that Pat's still here, and he's still a contender.
Yeah. And since semifinals that he won, he's had a pretty good streak.
For sure.
Yeah.
Podium. He almost won Rogue last year. I believe podium at Wadapalooza, podium at the games, podium here. He's still just consistently one of the best in the sport. His stretch through the middle, through Friday and Saturday, when everything fourth or better, was as good as anyone in the sport. He didn't have the seesaw performances like even Jeff and Roman had. So it was cool to see. And then, Jeff has a strong performance solidly in second, 30 points ahead of Roman. I think this doesn't necessarily matter to either of them in the long run, but I think, if you go back, you're thinking about like moral victories. Yeah, we didn't get to see it the way the games would have played out this year because of the injury. So for Jeff to be able to come back and win against Roman when they're both relatively healthy, is like, okay, cool. It's just a confidence boost, a solidification of your belief that you do have what it takes to win or be the best in the sport, even if it's just beating the guy that was next to you on the leaderboard for most of the time at the games. And poor Brent missing out on the podium again.
I know. And he looked like he was stressed as everybody was waiting for the announcement, because I heard him talking to somebody and they were like, I think you got it. And he was shaking his head and just like, no, I'm pretty sure the numbers don't add that way. And I mean, he knows more than most people with all of this kind of stuff.
I mean, situational awareness is Brent's superpower in that. And so, I mean, he knew because Dallon's time from the earlier heat factored in, and we saw a lot of good times from earlier heats factor in today in particular. But I mean, he's just had those close misses on the podium, whether it's, this year, and you even go back to, he comes off of the 2017 games, or go back to 2016. He misses out on the podium, losing to Pat because BKG, I think it was either BKG beat someone to the line or didn't hustle. Oh, it was BKG didn't hustle to the line and Pat did. And Pat got an extra few points and put him ahead of Brent. 2017, Brent finishes second, awesome performance. 2018 misses out on the podium at the games via tiebreaker to Lucas Hogberg, and then has a couple of struggling years, comes back, finishes on the podium in 21, and then, has another close call this year. And it's tough, man, to have that many close calls and still keep firing. And it's just a testament to his resiliency in that way, because he's a true competitor. So, yeah. But yeah, let's go down. Any other interesting?
Let's see.
Ricky battles back in fifth.
Yep.
Some people had him buried
he was
yesterday.
Around, I think it was in 10th.
10.
Yeah, 10th or 11th. Yep.
Hopper moves up. Pepper moves up.
Dylan. Yep.
So
BKG moved down a little.
Yeah. Noah dropped a little. So did Chandler. But I'd be really interested to see how much the fatigue factored in for Chandler after that deadlift. Central nervous system pretty wide.
Yep.
But you can tell he's pretty beat up.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Should we move to the women's side?
So I mentioned this last night on the live stream, and I thought that Tia and Laura were going to trade blows. And that's exactly what happened. The first two events, I was like, Laura's going to do great, potentially win. Tia's going to do great on the next one, potentially win. And then it's going to come down to the last event.
And
exactly what happened.
You couldn't have scripted out a better weekend for the two of them. This is what everybody wanted, but to see it actually play out exactly that way just gets me more excited about the season. I'm curious if this is what we're going to see, because Rogue is such a different programming than Wadapalooza, than semifinals, than the games. And it'll be really interesting to see how a full year transitions into the battle between the two of them.
Yeah, for sure. And I love that it wasn't just a battle for the top two, but we had Emma Lawson and Gabby Magala down there at a tie and win in year-end scenario for the podium as well.
Yeah.
And we talked about this before. In total, $196,000 was going to change hands on that final event just for the top four women. So
it's a lot of money.
Yeah, 183 grand. The difference between first and second at the time, was going to be the difference, and then another 13 grand difference between third and fourth. So that's a lot of money to switch around in 150 dubs and 30 reps on a barbell, which, oh man, yeah, it's so stressful, but it was awesome. And
it wasn't. Speaking of the stress too, when I was speaking with Laura afterwards, she was saying that it actually felt more stressful being inside with the fans right there and so close to her competitor, because normally the athletes are spread out more on the field. But I mean, you could have hooked your jump rope just about behind you because everything was so close.
Yeah, yeah. It felt like the open announcement, I believe it was 14-4 or 14-3, Chris Spieler versus Graham Holmberg, when they went head to head. And it was, they did it Fight Club style. They did it like right in front of the rig. They let everyone get up nice and close. It was clean and jerks and toes to bar, ascending ladder. And it just had that cool, like gritty vibe to it. And to match that atmosphere as a pivot based on weather and have it be that way and be everyone up close and personal on this crazy final event and heat that was going to mean so much. And it sounds weird to say in my head, but I think that for the bigger sport and all the fans, this was the best possible outcome. Because
with Laura beating Tia.
Yeah. It just seemed like if I think about what's going to get and this is personal athlete goals and everything notwithstanding, obviously you support, like we support all of them in their goals to, be the fittest. But if I'm a fan, I put myself in the average fan and I see Laura win and do so in strong fashion, deservedly so, winning the title of fittest woman on earth. And then she has a crack at the woman that wasn't there, that, the greatest, individual CrossFit athlete of all time, comes back and everyone's saying like, oh, here she comes.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like internally there's probably like, hey, for myself and for my own pride and belief in myself, like I want to go out there and win, no ifs, ands, or buts. And then the byproduct of that is now everyone goes, okay, you beat her, and now let's see this full training off season, and it's going to get us excited, right?
It adds for a better storyline and more interest in the women's field, because it gets the buy-in from people wanting to see how is this relationship between the two of them going to progress with the competitions and the season. And I mean, even I'm almost a little bit more interested in the Open now, just to see how, and how we feel about the Open. We've talked about this, but I do think it just adds to, I'm curious to see like them go blow for blow, even though I know it doesn't mean as much as it used to them.
Yeah. It's, man, it's, I use the term in football all the time, almost like a moral victory.
Yeah.
Right. And I think everyone can walk away from that. Like Laura's like, oh yeah, like I can win when Tia's in the field, extenuating circumstances by the wayside. And Tia can come back and be like, you know what? I still am very fit. And I'm on my way back. And I still have a lot of the stuff that I had before I, took time away to grow my family. And I can come back and still do this, and she has nothing left to prove, right? She's she's got all the titles and accolades that you could ever ask for. But sometimes it's also like, hey, I just want this for me to know that I can, right? Like,
well, and I think it did something twofold. It gave Laura the affirmation that she is fit enough to win on a field when Tia is there. And it gave Tia the affirmation that maybe she needed, that she can have a family and she can come back and she can still compete on the highest level.
Yeah. And I guarantee you they're both going to be fired up for training this year.
Yep, because they're both good. It's going to just create more healthy competition between the two, because Laura's going to want to stay on top and Tia's going to want to reinsert herself on top.
Totally.
Which is great for the sport.
Yeah. And then, Emma Lawson, another podium, backs up her performance at the games.
Yep.
I think Gabby Magawa right there being in the hunt for it. That's going to continue to fire her up, because I think it's only a matter of time before she finds herself on the CrossFit Games podium. Gazan, Emma Carey backing up again, also continuing the momentum from the games. DB, I think for her, and I know she's been open about that, like working on the mental aspect of her game and being able to, take hits and keep coming. You see her, she goes through a stretch where she has in 5 events, she goes 17th, 10th, 13th. She has a 5th, a strong performance, another 16th. And then you're like, uh-oh, is this just not her weekend? Starts today off with an 8th, goes and wins an event, and then comes back and finishes 4th in an event that like had some by the end for those athletes was feeling pretty heavy to like cycle the barbell towards the end. And like that's an awesome way of just like knuckling down and bouncing back and moving yourself into the top 10 again. So yeah, I thought that was a strong performance. But
now I'm seeing Ariel Lowen 8th. Did you bet the over or under?
I want to say I said sell for her being the highest American.
Okay. I did too because I was thinking Alex Kazan.
Yeah.
And she is.
Yep. So
fun.
Yeah. But a lot of good stuff. Man, there was just a lot of zigzagging on the leaderboard this weekend.
Yeah.
And kind of to be expected. Like I mentioned, the Rogue, as I said before, Rogue sits at a crossroads for a lot of athletes in terms of where they're at in training and preparation. So, and I mean, also a huge credit to all the fans that stuck around. Like,
I know, through the rain, through the cold, through the delays yesterday.
I mean, shout out to all the fans we got to hang out with in the Intel Club we got to see them enjoying their weekend. I think it was the CrossFit Tico crew and fans from all over. Got to hang out and chat with them and get excited and see them crowd the glass over when they were looking down on.
They had front row seats to the whole show.
It was pretty fun. And, I don't get to see that side as much because usually for these big events, you're running around. But it was like, it sounds funny. We're sitting there, we're at work, like working on a couple photos, and I'm tired. I'm like, I might need another coffee. And I get up and I go to fill my water bottle at the bar they had there. And this fan goes up and goes, "I'll have 2 double Jack and Cokes, please."
Amazing.
And I was like, hell yeah. Hell yeah. Like, mama's on vacation right now. Like, you know what? Let's get it. We're gonna have a great day, guys.
Sunday fun day for so many people.
Yeah, and it was a blast. And it was like they're having a great time. Like they spent all this time and money and energy to come out here to support it. Like let's pick it up a little bit.
Lay your hair down.
And shout out to the road crew, Leah and Angela that brought donuts this morning.
Yes, from Round Rock Donuts. Oh my gosh! If anybody watching is in Texas still or ever comes to the Austin Round Rock area, you got to do it. How was that maple one?
It was fantastic. Fantastic. Highly recommend. They do the I don't know if they offer more donuts than that, but they did the base donuts well. Maple glazed and chocolate.
Leah said that they were some of them were sweet potato base.
Oh. I know they had used like some sort of egg thing involved too that doesn't allow them to do the dried dough or whatever. There's a very specific process that they use. So they have to make them fresh, which makes the texture was fantastic.
Light and airy.
Yep. Perfect. I'm trying to think. Do you have a favorite moment now?
You know my favorite moment.
The slide?
The slides.
Oh, yeah.
The slides. It truthfully was. I mean, yes, the Tia and Laura, like from a sports perspective, was by a landslide, my favorite moment. But as like a fan of like fun entertainment in sports, grown ass men who are buff and shirtless sliding down in the rain. It just was so comical to me. And the way that they all had the biggest, cheesiest smiles, like they were on the playground, was just really cool. It really warmed my heart and soul. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great.
Yeah, those moments provide a little bit of contrast, right? Because the athletes are so dialed in, looking left and right. They're kind of in their mode. And then for that split second, they break out of it. And like you said, it's just like a kid on the playground again. And they're just having fun and enjoying being out there. And there's something about moment? It, like about Roman doing it too.
Yeah.
Because he's like this just, he's just this hulking, imposing Russian dude, just like sliding on his back, like
hands in the air.
oh man,
Wee.
just doing the happy baby, and then Chandler backing it up, just looking
so great,
smooth as creamy peanut butter. But
yeah,
I still like. I think my favorite moment is still Chandler's deadlift.
Yeah,
just giving the people the show for the long evenings. But
it's a good moment.
Yeah, it was a good weekend. It was a great weekend. And
it was. Rogue always puts on such a phenomenal event, and even though there were the technical issues, there were weather delays, their team is so communicative of what's happening. They do the best they can.
They're very malleable, right? Like which is tough, but I think it's fun, and it was cool. We bumped into Jules, Andrew, and a bunch of the crew that were on judging staff too, and a few of them had been at every single Rogue Invitational so
really
far.
Cool.
And Rogue gave them this really cool 5-year gift. It was like this beautiful piece of machine steel with knurling on it, and I mean, honestly,
they said it was a piece of a barbell.
Yeah, it's a piece of basically a barbell,
like
solid
this big.
through. Yeah, and it says like 5 years on it, and I mean, it's the perfect like thingamajig to like just mess around with in your hands, and then just like, I don't know, whack your friends here and there.
Just in case.
Just in case. But cool. Yeah, well, let's see. We have our top 3 moments up since it's a podium day. We'll do a podium for the top moments. We'll have newsletter coming out. So if you haven't, go through the link in our bio, subscribe to that, stay up to date with everything we're putting out.
A lot of good athlete interviews on Instagram too.
Lauren, you were crushing that.
Some really fun ones too. It's almost nice as you get to the last day because the athletes start to relax and open up. And I mean, just some really good stories. Even I spoke to Tia about her going beltless with the deadlift, and she just talked about essentially safety with being postpartum and things trying to get back to, where they were before. And even Laura just talking about the nerves between her and Tia in that final event and, joking around a bit. So
yeah,
it was fun. I did ask Pat Vellner if he was going to retire now, and he he laughed. Oh, man. I don't think that's the plan. I was half joking. So
yeah, he's still got a few good cracks in him.
Yeah, he's on a hot streak, and he should stay there.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys are watching right now, I think Sunday Night Football's on. Tyson Bagent, longtime CrossFitter, is starting for the Bears again. So definitely be sure to check that out. We actually have an interview with him from the Combine, a full interview that we're going to put out this week. So some good stuff there. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Sean will be back. We'll have a kind of maybe a revisit all of our questions and some reactions and takeaways from him too, because he gets
different perspective.
Everything.
Yeah, the strong man too.
Yeah, so
I wonder how he takes care of his voice at these events.
He's really good about it. He's really when I spoke with him last night, his voice was holding up pretty well.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, well, we'll keep it short and sweet. Thanks everyone for tuning in across the week. We'll have our normal podcast schedule coming out the rest of this week. We'll have a new episode of TEF Rewind coming.
Episode of Death by this week.
Yeah, we actually have a TEF Rewind coming up with Vellner and Fikowski next together.
Perfect.
So it's great. And back to our normal schedule with Death by. And again, subscribe to the newsletter because we send out reminders and everything like that to keep you up to date as well. And then go support our friends at Box Basics. They've been awesome. They hooked us up. Even they knew. They gave us these little rain jackets.
It's so funny because when I got it in the mail, I was like, a rain jacket? That's peculiar for Austin, Texas. Like, I thought maybe a hoodie just because I was thinking how cold it was at night last year. And they knew things that I didn't know because I've worn this every night.
Yep, exactly. So not only are they good people, I think they have a crystal ball at their warehouse to know exactly what you need. So go check them out. Use Rig Shakers, get 20% off everything up through this Friday. It's a pretty sweet deal. You can get anything you need. And they've been awesome for us. So thanks to Box Basics, shopboxbasics.com. Thank you to everyone for watching. For Lauren, I'm Tommy. It's an awesome weekend. It's time to go get some food and sleep.
Tommy needs barbecue. He hasn't had any yet.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go get some barbecue, some brisket, maybe a little bit of everything else since they don't have track tip here. But
get a full belly and to sleep before our flights in the morning.
I know. Oh man, we got to get up early too. So, all right, we'll catch you guys later, and take care, everyone, and we'll see you in a couple days.
Bye, guys.